You know, it's funny. You think you're sitting there listening to me talk about coincidence and meaning, but what's really happening is the universe is having a conversation with itself. You are the universe, and so am I, and so is that bird singing outside, and so is the sound of traffic, and so is the very air we breathe. We're all just different ways the same cosmic dance is expressing itself. Life keeps throwing these strange little moments at us, doesn't it? You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and then they call you. You need exactly the right book at exactly the right time, and there it is on a park bench. You're wrestling with a problem, and a stranger on the bus says exactly what you need to hear. We call these coincidences, but what if they're not coincidences at all? What if they're the natural rhythm of existence itself? See, we've been taught to think we're separate things bumping into each other accidentally, like billiard balls on a table knocking into each other by chance. But that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. The universe isn't made of separate things. It's one thing, one process, one dance appearing as many. And when you really get this, when you really see it, then what we call synchronicity becomes as natural as breathing. You are not a stranger in this world. You are not an accident. You are not a cosmic fluke that happened to show up on this planet by some impossible chance. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself through your eyes, your thoughts, your experiences. And the universe is very, very good at talking to itself. Think about it this way. Your body knows how to heal a cut without you having to think about it. Your heart knows how to beat without you having to remind it. Your lungs know how to breathe while you sleep. There's an intelligence at work here that's way beyond what your thinking mind can grasp. And this same intelligence is orchestrating all these meaningful coincidences in your life. The trouble is, we've been conditioned to think that meaning only comes from our own effort, our own planning, our own control. We think we have to make everything happen by pushing and struggling and forcing. But what if the universe is already conspiring to bring you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it? What if your job isn't to make things happen, but to pay attention to what's already happening? This isn't some mystical mumbo-jumbo. This is physics. This is the way reality actually works. Everything in the universe is connected to everything else. Every particle of matter, every wave of energy, every thought in your head, it's all part of one interconnected web. When you change something over here, something over there changes too. When you're truly open and aware, you start to notice these connections everywhere. But here's the thing, and this is important. Synchronicity doesn't work when you're trying to force it. It doesn't work when you're desperate or grasping or trying to manipulate the universe into giving you what you want. It works when you're relaxed, when you're present, when you're in harmony with the natural flow of things. You see, the universe has a sense of humor. It likes to play. It likes to surprise you. It likes to show you that your little rational mind, with all its plans and schemes, is just a tiny part of a much bigger intelligence that's been running the show all along. And the more you try to control everything, the more you miss the magic that's happening right in front of your face. So what does this mean for how you live your life? It means you can relax. It means you can trust. It means you can stop trying so hard to make everything happen and start paying attention to what wants to happen. It means you can start seeing yourself as part of the cosmic conversation instead of a separate observer trying to figure it all out. When you're in sync with the universe, and by the universe I mean the totality of everything that is, opportunities appear, doors open, people show up at just the right moment. Resources become available, solutions present themselves, not because you forced them to, but because you're flowing with the natural intelligence of existence itself. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, this sounds nice, but what about all the bad things that happen? What about suffering and pain and loss? And that's a fair question. But here's what I want you to understand. Even the difficult experiences in your life are part of the pattern. Even the challenges and the setbacks and the heartbreaks are ways the universe is teaching you something, showing you something, preparing you for something. The universe doesn't make mistakes. It doesn't create accidents. Everything that happens is part of a larger pattern, a larger design, a larger intelligence at work. And when you start to see this, when you start to trust this, then even the difficult times become meaningful. They become part of your education, part of your growth, part of your awakening to who you really are. But you can't see this pattern when you're caught up in the drama of your own story. You can't see it when you're busy being the victim or the hero or the one who's got it all figured out. You can only see it when you step back and realize that you're not separate from the pattern. You are the pattern. You are the universe expressing itself as a human being, having a human experience, learning and growing and awakening to its own nature. And here's where it gets really interesting. The more you align yourself with this natural flow, the more synchronicities you notice. The more you trust the process, the more the process supports you. The more you let go of trying to control everything, the more everything starts to work out in ways you never could have planned. This is why trying to force synchronicity never works. It's like trying to force yourself to fall asleep. The harder you try, the more awake you become. Synchronicity is a function of relaxation, of trust, of being in harmony with what is. When you're fighting against life, you're out of sync. When you're flowing with life, you're in sync. And when you're in sync, the universe starts to feel like it's dancing with you instead of against you. So how do you get in sync? How do you start to notice and work with these meaningful coincidences? First, you pay attention. You become aware. You start to notice the patterns in your life, the connections, the seemingly random events that aren't really random at all. You start to see that your life is full of synchronicities. You just haven't been paying attention to them. Second, you trust. You trust that the universe knows what it's doing. You trust that there's an intelligence at work that's far greater than your own. You trust that you're being guided even when you can't see where you're going. This doesn't mean you become passive or lazy. It means you become receptive. You become open to possibilities you hadn't considered. Third, you participate. You show up. You engage with life fully, but without attachment to specific outcomes. You plant seeds, but you don't try to force the flowers to bloom. You do your part, but you let the universe do its part too. You become a collaborator with existence itself. And fourth, you enjoy the game. You see life as play, as a cosmic joke, as a divine comedy. You stop taking yourself so seriously. You realize that the universe is having fun with itself and you're part of that fun. You start to laugh at the absurdity of it all, the beauty of it all, the mystery of it all. When you live this way, your whole relationship with life changes. You stop feeling like you're struggling against the current and start feeling like you're flowing with it. You stop feeling like you're alone in a hostile universe and start feeling like you're part of a friendly conspiracy. You stop feeling like you have to figure everything out and start trusting that everything is already figured out. This doesn't mean you become a dreamy, impractical person who just sits around waiting for the universe to deliver. It means you become a practical mystic, someone who understands the spiritual dimension of existence but also knows how to function effectively in the world. You work with both the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown, the logical and the intuitive. You start to notice that your intuition is actually a form of intelligence. You start to trust those hunches, those gut feelings, those sudden insights that seem to come from nowhere. You realize that your rational mind is just one way of knowing, and that there are other ways of knowing that are just as valid and often more accurate. You start to see that what you call your life is actually the universe living itself through you. Your thoughts are the universe thinking through you. Your experiences are the universe experiencing itself through you. Your creativity is the universe creating through you. You are not separate from the cosmic process. You are the cosmic process, localized in this particular body, at this particular time, in this particular place. And when you really get this, when you really understand that you are the universe becoming conscious of itself, then synchronicity becomes as natural as sunrise. Of course, the universe is going to send you exactly what you need. Of course, it's going to orchestrate meaningful coincidences in your life. Of course, it's going to guide you toward your highest good. Why wouldn't it? You're not separate from it. You are it. This is why fighting against life never works in the long run. You're fighting against yourself. You're fighting against the very intelligence that created you and sustains you and is expressing itself through you. It's like your left hand fighting your right hand. It's pointless and exhausting and ultimately futile. But when you align yourself with the natural flow of existence, when you start to move with the current instead of against it, then life becomes effortless. Not easy necessarily, but effortless, like a leaf floating down a river. You're still moving, you're still going somewhere, but you're not struggling against the water. You're letting the water carry you where it wants to go. And here's the beautiful thing. Where the water wants to take you is exactly where you need to go. The universe isn't trying to frustrate you or confuse you or make your life difficult. It's trying to help you become who you really are. It's trying to awaken you to your true nature. It's trying to show you that you're not a separate wave, but the ocean itself. Every synchronicity in your life is a reminder of this truth. Every meaningful coincidence is the universe saying, hey, remember who you are. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that you're part of something much bigger and more beautiful than you can imagine with your thinking mind. So the next time something seemingly impossible happens in your life, the next time you experience one of those moments where everything just clicks into place, don't dismiss it as coincidence. Don't rationalize it away. Don't try to explain it with your logical mind. Just appreciate it. Just enjoy it. Just let it remind you that you're living in a universe that's alive, that's conscious, that's playing with itself in the most wonderful ways. And remember, you're not just witnessing this cosmic play, you're participating in it. You're not just watching the universe dance, you are the dance. You're not just observing the synchronicities, you are the synchronicity. You are the universe synchronizing with itself, coordinating with itself, playing with itself through the vehicle of your human experience. This is the ultimate joke, the ultimate paradox, the ultimate truth. You spend your whole life looking for meaning, looking for purpose, looking for your place in the universe. And all along, you are the universe, looking for itself. You are the meaning you're seeking. You are the purpose you're searching for. You are the place you belong. And when you finally realize this, when you finally wake up to what you are, then every moment becomes a synchronicity. Every breath becomes a miracle. Every heartbeat becomes a cosmic event. Every thought becomes a universe thinking itself into existence. Every experience becomes the universe experiencing itself through your eyes. You are not a stranger here. You are not an accident. You are not a cosmic mistake. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself through the magnificent, temporary, utterly unique phenomenon that is your life. And the more you realize this, the more synchronicities you'll notice, because you'll start to see that your entire existence is one big, beautiful, perfectly timed synchronicity. The universe is not random, it's not chaotic, it's not meaningless. It's intelligent, it's creative, it's playful, it's loving, and it's expressing all of these qualities through you, as you, in the form of your everyday life. Every challenge you face, every joy you experience, every person you meet, every choice you make, it's all part of the cosmic conversation the universe is having with itself. to relax, trust, pay attention, participate, and most importantly, enjoy the ride. Because this is it. This is the only life you get as this particular expression of the universe. And the universe has gone to an awful lot of trouble to create you, to sustain you, to provide you with exactly the experiences you need to wake up to what you are. The synchronicities in your life are not random coincidences. They are love letters from the universe to itself. They are reminders that you are not alone, that you are not separate, that you are part of the greatest story ever told, the story of the universe becoming conscious of itself through billions of individual perspectives, each one unique, each one necessary, each one absolutely perfect, exactly as it is. You are the universe playing with itself. And what a wonderful game it is. Now let me tell you something about timing. You know how sometimes you get impatient? You want things to happen now, right now, because you think you know when they should happen? But the universe has its own timing, and its timing is always perfect. Always. Not perfect according to your schedule, but perfect according to the larger pattern that you can't see from your limited perspective. Think about a seed. You plant it in the ground, and then what do? You water it, you give it sunlight, but you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You don't try to force the sprout to emerge. You trust that the seed knows exactly when to crack open, exactly when to send up its first green shoot, exactly when to bloom. The seed is in sync with forces you can't see, the pull of the moon, the warmth of the earth, the chemistry of the soil. Your life works the same way. There are times when you need to be underground, gathering strength, developing roots. There are times when you need to break through the surface and reach for the light. There are times when you need to flower and bear fruit, and there are times when you need to let go, to die to what you were, so you can become what you're meant to be next. The universe knows which season you're in, even when you don't. Those periods when nothing seems to be happening, when you feel stuck or stagnant or like you're moving backwards, those are often the most important times. That's when the real work is being done, below the surface, out of sight. That's when you're being prepared for the next phase of your growth. And here's something beautiful. The universe wastes nothing. Nothing. Every experience you've ever had, every mistake you've ever made, every heartbreak you've ever suffered, every moment of joy you've ever felt, it's all been preparing you for this moment, right here, right now. You couldn't be who you are without every single thing that's happened to you. Those seemingly random encounters that changed your life, they weren't random. That job you lost that led to something better, it wasn't a setback. That relationship that ended and broke your heart, it wasn't a failure. It was all part of the pattern, all part of the cosmic curriculum that's been designed specifically for you. You see, the universe doesn't make mistakes, but it does make what we might call happy accidents. It likes to surprise itself. It likes to create unexpected beauty, unexpected connections, unexpected solutions. And you are one of those happy accidents. You are the universe surprising itself with your particular combination of talents and quirks and perspectives. This is why comparison is so futile. You can't compare your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. You can't compare your winter to someone else's summer. You can't compare your underground season to someone else's blooming season. You're reading different books, living different stories, expressing different aspects of the same cosmic intelligence. And here's where it gets really interesting. The universe doesn't want you to be anyone else. It already has everyone else covered. What it wants is for you to be completely, utterly, unapologetically yourself. Not the version of yourself that you think you should be, Not the version that would make other people comfortable, but the authentic you that wants to emerge. Every time you try to be someone else, you're working against the grain of existence. Every time you deny your true nature, you're cutting yourself off from the source of synchronicity. Every time you pretend to be who you're not, you're creating static in the cosmic conversation. But when you're authentically yourself, when you're living from your true nature, then you become a clear channel for the universe to express itself through. You become a conduit for its creativity, its love, its intelligence, its humor. And that's when the magic really starts to happen. The universe has been trying to express itself through you your entire life. Every creative impulse you've ever had, every moment of inspiration, every time you've felt truly alive, that's been the universe trying to create through you. And every time you've ignored those impulses, every time you've talked yourself out of following your inspiration, you've been blocking the very flow that could transform your life. So what would happen if you started saying yes to those impulses? What would happen if you started trusting those creative urges, those intuitive insights, those moments when you feel called to do something that doesn't make logical sense? What would happen if you started treating your inspiration as sacred, as a message from the universe itself? This doesn't mean you become reckless or irresponsible. It means you become responsive to the deeper currents of your life. It means you learn to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of wisdom, between the chatter of your anxious mind and the whisper of your deeper knowing. Fear will always tell you to play it safe, to stay small, to avoid risk. But wisdom, real wisdom, will often ask you to step into the unknown, to trust the process, to take that leap of faith that your rational mind can't justify. And here's the thing, every time you follow wisdom instead of fear, you align yourself more closely with the natural flow of existence. The universe is not trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you growing. It's trying to keep you expanding. It's trying to keep you evolving into the fullest expression of what you can become. And that process necessarily involves risk, uncertainty, stepping into the unknown. But here's what I want you to understand. The unknown is not your enemy. The unknown is where all possibility lives. The unknown is where miracles happen. The unknown is where the universe keeps all its surprises, all its gifts, all its synchronicities waiting for you. When you're comfortable with uncertainty, when you're at peace with not knowing what's going to happen next, then you're available for the universe to surprise you. When you're trying to control everything, when you're insisting that life unfold according to your plans, then you're cutting yourself off from all the wonderful possibilities that don't fit into your limited imagination. The universe has a much bigger imagination than you do. It can conceive of solutions you've never thought of, opportunities you've never considered, ways of being you've never imagined. But it can only deliver these gifts when you're open to receiving them, when you're willing to let go of how you think things should be and embrace how they actually are. This is the art of living in sync with existence. Learning to hold your goals lightly, to pursue your dreams passionately but without attachment to specific outcomes, to work toward what you want while remaining open to what the universe might have in store for you that's even better. And here's the final piece of the puzzle, gratitude. When you're truly grateful for what is, when you can appreciate the perfection of this moment exactly as it is, then you're in complete harmony with the universe. You're not arguing with reality, not wishing things were different. You're celebrating the cosmic joke, the divine play, the magnificent dance of existence. Gratitude is the ultimate synchronicity. It's the universe appreciating itself through your awareness, through your recognition of the beauty and wonder and perfection of what is. And when you're in a state of genuine gratitude, you become a magnet for more experiences to be grateful for. So remember this, you are not a random collection of atoms that happen to become conscious by accident. You are the universe experiencing itself subjectively, locally, temporarily, through the exquisite vehicle of your human awareness. Every synchronicity in your life is a reminder of this truth. Every meaningful coincidence is the universe winking at itself through your experience. You are the cosmic dancer and the dance itself. You are the cosmic joke and the one who gets the joke. You are the universe playing with itself and recognizing that play for what it is, the most beautiful, the most meaningful, the most perfectly orchestrated improvisation in the history of existence. And the best part? The dance is just getting started.
It's a strange game we play. We spend our lives trying to repair ourselves, as if we were somehow damaged, forever polishing the mask we show the world. And yet, if you look closely at the great figures of history, the ones who actually changed things, who actually lived, you'll notice something peculiar. They were all cracked, every single one of them, broken in some way. And it wasn't despite their brokenness that they became who they were. It was because of it. Now, this goes against everything we've been taught, doesn't it? We're told to hide our wounds, to cover our scars, to pretend that we have it all together. But what if I told you that your very brokenness, the thing you're most ashamed of, is precisely what the universe needs from you? What if the crack in your character is not a flaw, but a feature? Let me be very clear about something from the start. When I say damaged, I'm not talking about someone who is careless or irresponsible, or who uses their pain as an excuse. No. I'm talking about the person who has been to the edge, who has looked into the darkness of their own soul and come back trembling. I'm talking about the person who knows, really knows, that they are not self-sufficient, that they cannot do this thing called life on their own. These are the people the universe chooses, not because they are weak, but because they are awake. You see, the universe has no use for the self-made man. That fellow who struts around, believing he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps, who thinks his success is entirely his own doing. He's a closed system. There's no space for anything greater to work through him, because he's already filled to the brim with himself. But the damaged person, the broken one, they have cracks, and through those cracks, light gets in. Think about water for a moment. If you have a perfectly sealed container, water cannot enter. But if there's a crack, the tiniest opening, water finds its way in. It seeps through. It fills the space. This is how grace works. This is how the power of existence itself works. It cannot enter where there is no opening. And damage creates openings. Now I want you to understand something very important here. Being damaged is not the same as being destroyed. A cup with a crack can still hold water. A window with a chip can still let in light. In fact, sometimes that chip creates the most beautiful patterns when the sun hits it just right. Your damage is like this. It doesn't disqualify you from being used by life. It qualifies you. Look at the great spiritual figures throughout history. Moses, they say, had a speech impediment. He could barely talk, and yet he was chosen to be the voice of God to his people. How absurd is that? The universe picks a man who cannot speak properly to deliver the most important message in history. Why? Because Moses knew he couldn't do it alone. He knew he needed help. He knew he was insufficient. And in that knowing, he became a perfect vessel. Or consider David, a small shepherd boy overlooked by his own family, considered too young, too weak, too insignificant. And yet it was precisely this David, this damaged goods in the eyes of society, who became the great king, because David never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his smallness. Even when he wore a crown, he remembered he was just a shepherd boy who the universe had picked up and used. The pattern is everywhere once you start looking for it. Paul, the great apostle, was a murderer. He hunted down and killed the very people whose cause he would later champion. Can you imagine the weight of that? The knowledge that you destroyed the lives of those you now claim to serve? And yet, it was this very guilt, this very awareness of his own capacity for evil, that made him such a powerful teacher. He knew he was saved not by his own goodness, but by something far beyond himself. Here's what happens when you're damaged. You lose the illusion of control. You realize you're not running the show. Most people walk through life believing they're in charge. That if they just work hard enough, plan well enough, be good enough, everything will turn out fine. But the damaged person knows better. They've seen how quickly everything can fall apart. They've felt the ground give way beneath their feet. And in that terrible moment of falling, they learn something the comfortable never learn. They learn to trust what catches them. This is why the universe chooses damaged people. Because they've learned to let go. They've learned to relax into life rather than trying to grip it with white knuckles. Have you ever tried to float in water? If you tense up, if you try to control every movement, you sink. But if you relax, if you trust the water, it holds you. Life is exactly like this. The damaged person has learned to float. Now let me tell you what damage really is. It's not the thing that happened to you. It's not the addiction, the abuse, the failure, the loss. Those are just events. Damage is what happens inside you when you finally admit that those events changed you, that you're not the same person you were before, that you cannot go back to who you were. This admission, this acknowledgement of change, this is what creates the crack through which light enters. Most people, when something terrible happens, they spend all their energy trying to go back to normal. They want to return to who they were before. But the damaged person realizes there is no going back. The old self is gone. And in the space where the old self used to be, something new can grow. Something that wasn't possible before. This is not recovery. This is transformation. And transformation is what the universe is after. You know what's fascinating? The people who have never been broken often have the hardest time with life. They're brittle. When something difficult comes along, they shatter because they've never learned to bend. But the person who has already been broken, who has already been bent out of shape, they have a kind of flexibility. They can move with life's changes rather than resisting them. They're like old wood that has weathered many storms. Strong not because it's rigid, but because it knows how to sway. I want to tell you about something that happens when you accept your damage. You become humble. You realize you're not the star of the show. You're not even the director. You're just one small part of an enormous production. And this realization, far from being depressing, is actually tremendously liberating. Because when you know you're not in charge, you can stop trying to control everything. You can stop exhausting yourself trying to manage every outcome. You can simply do your part and let the rest unfold as it will. This is what the ancient Chinese called wu-wei, effortless action. Not doing nothing, but doing without straining, working without forcing. And you can only do this when you've been humbled by your own limitations. The proud man, the one who thinks he has it all together, he's always fighting. Fighting against circumstances, fighting against other people, fighting against life itself. He's in a constant state of resistance. But resistance is exhausting. The damaged person has learned that resistance is futile. Not in a defeatist way, but in a deeply accepting way. They've learned to work with life rather than against it. Here's something else that happens when you're damaged. You develop compassion. Real compassion. Not the fake kind where you look down on others and feel sorry for them, but the kind where you recognize yourself in everyone you meet. Because you know what it's like to struggle, to fail, to be at the end of your rope. You know what it's like to need help. And this knowing makes you gentle with others in a way that the undamaged can never be. The person who has never really suffered often judges those who are suffering. They think, why don't they just pull themselves together? Why don't they just try harder? But the damaged person knows it's not that simple. They know that sometimes trying harder is exactly the wrong thing to do. Sometimes you have to stop trying and simply surrender. And this knowledge, born of personal experience, makes them able to help others in ways the comfortable never could. Now, I need to say something about what damage is not. Damage is not an excuse. It's not a reason to give up, or to wallow in self-pity, or to treat others badly. If your damage has made you bitter, resentful, cruel, then you've missed the lesson. You've taken your pain and turned it inward or outward as poison, rather than allowing it to crack you open. The difference between the person the universe can use and the person it cannot is this. One person looks at their damage and says, why me? This is unfair. I am cursed. The other person looks at their damage and says, what is this trying to teach me? How is this making me more human? What am I supposed to learn from this? Both are damaged, but only one is becoming wise. There's a story I love about a man who goes to see a teacher. He says, Master, I have so many problems. I am anxious. I am depressed. I have addictions. I have failed at everything I've tried. How can I possibly be of any use? And the teacher says, you have just listed your qualifications. The man is confused. And the teacher explains, your anxiety has taught you that life is uncertain. Your depression has taught you that happiness cannot be forced. Your addictions have taught you that you need help. Your failures have taught you humility. These are not disqualifications. These are your credentials. This is what I mean when I say the universe chooses damaged people. It's not that it looks for people who are broken and says, oh, let me use them. It's that brokenness creates the conditions necessary for something greater to work through you. It's like how a seed must break open before it can become a plant. The seed that stays intact, perfectly sealed, perfect in its seedness, will never grow. And what emerges from that crack is not the old you, perfectly restored. It's something entirely new. Something that was always waiting inside you, but could never come out, because the shell was too hard. Now with the shell cracked, it can finally emerge. Let me tell you what I've observed. The people who change the world are never the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who struggled, who failed, who fell down and got back up so many times they lost count. Why? Because struggle teaches you things that comfort never can. It teaches you that you're stronger than you thought. It teaches you that you can survive what you thought would destroy you. It teaches you that there's something in you, or working through you, that is greater than your circumstances. And here's the beautiful part. Once you've learned this, once you've really learned it in your bones, you become fearless. Not fearless in the sense that you're never afraid, but fearless in the sense that you know fear is just a feeling, and feeling's past. You know that even if the worst happens, you'll be okay, because you've already survived the worst, or something close to it, and you're still here. This is the great secret of damaged people. Free to take risks, free to speak truth, free to love without holding back, because they know that holding back doesn't protect you anyway. I want you to think about this for a moment. Who would you rather learn from? Someone who has never failed, who has always succeeded at everything they tried, who has never known real suffering, or someone who has fallen flat on their face, who has known despair, who has clawed their way back from the edge. The first person can tell you about success, but the second person can tell you about life. The universe chooses damaged people because they have wisdom that the comfortable don't have. They've been refined by fire. They've had the unnecessary burned away. What remains is essential, true, real. And this is what the universe needs. Not people who are perfect, but people who are real. Now here's where it gets really interesting. When you accept your damage, when you stop trying to hide it or fix it or pretend it's not there, something magical happens. Other people see it, and they recognize themselves in you. Your damage becomes a bridge, a way for others to cross from their isolation into connection. Because everyone is damaged in some way. Everyone has wounds they're trying to hide. But when you stop hiding yours, you give others permission to stop hiding theirs. This is how healing happens. Not through pretending to be whole, but through admitting you're broken. Not through presenting a perfect image, but through showing your scars. Your willingness to be vulnerable, to be seen in your damage. This is what allows others to be vulnerable too. And in that mutual vulnerability, something beautiful happens. Connection. Real, deep, human connection. The universe doesn't choose damaged people to do its work. Despite their damage, it chooses them because of it. Because damage creates humility. Humility creates openness. Openness creates space. And in that space, something greater can work. Call it God. Call it the universe. Call it the power of life itself. Whatever you call it, it needs space to work. And damage creates that space. So if you're sitting there thinking, I'm too broken to be of any use, I'm too damaged to matter, I've made too many mistakes, let me tell you something. You're exactly who the universe is looking for. Your brokenness is not a bug, it's a feature. Your damage is not a disqualification, it's your credential. Your wounds are not shameful secrets. They're badges of honor that say, I have lived, I have suffered, I have learned, and I am still here. The universe doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones. It doesn't need more people who have it all together. It needs more people who are willing to fall apart and be put back together in a new way. It doesn't need more people pretending to be strong. It needs more people who know they're weak and let something stronger work through them. This is the great paradox. Power is made perfect in weakness. Not despite weakness, but in it, through it, by means of it. The very thing you think disqualifies you is what qualifies you. The very wound you're trying to hide is the door through which light can enter. The very damage you're ashamed of is the crack through which grace flows. So stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to present a perfect image. Stop pretending you have it all together. Instead, be honest about your damage, acknowledge your brokenness, admit your need for help. And then, in that moment of honest vulnerability, you'll discover something amazing. You're not alone. You've never been alone. And the very damage you thought made you unusable is what makes you perfect for what the universe needs you to do. And the best vessels are the ones that have been broken and put back together. They're the ones that know they're just containers, not the thing contained. They're the ones that let light pass through them because they're full of cracks. And that light, that power, that grace, it shines all the brighter because of those cracks. So be damaged. Be broken.
There is an old saying that the truth will set you free. But before it frees you, it makes you heavy. The truthful man, wherever you find him, seems to walk under a weight invisible to others. He may not complain, he may not cry out, but there is a gravity in his presence, a solemnity in his eyes, as though he carries something no one else can quite understand. And indeed, he does. For the truthful man carries the heaviest burden of all, the refusal to live in illusion. Most people find it easier to live with masks. We present faces to one another, polished, rehearsed, agreeable. A father plays the role of the strong provider, even when he trembles inside. A friend nods along to things he does not believe, only to avoid the awkward silence of disagreement. A lover says, "I will always be here," even while knowing deep down that nothing lasts forever. These masks are lies, of course, but they are lies we accept because they protect us from discomfort. They let us belong, they let us be liked, but the truthful man cannot wear them for long. He may try, for he is human after all, but something in him revolts. He feels the itch of dishonesty like a splinter in the mind. He senses the falseness of the role and cannot rest until it is removed. And so, one by one, he lays aside the masks. At first, this feels noble, liberating. He thinks, now I can finally be real. But he soon discovers that the world does not reward reality. The world punishes it. Imagine a dinner table where everyone is speaking politely about things they do not care about: politics, the weather, the price of bread. And into that circle steps the truthful man. He cannot force his tongue to move along with their games. He does not condemn them. He simply falls silent. But his silence exposes the emptiness of the conversation, and suddenly the others are uneasy. His presence becomes a mirror they would rather avoid. This is why the truthful man carries a burden. Not because truth itself is a curse, but because it alienates him from the crowd. The world is built upon a delicate agreement. We will not disturb each other's illusions. And the truthful man, by his very nature, breaks that pact. He carries the heaviest burden because he cannot lie to himself. He cannot convince himself that wealth is happiness when he sees rich men weeping in their mansions. He cannot pretend that success is security when he knows that every victory ends in death. He cannot swallow the belief that belonging is found in imitation when his soul cries out that imitation is the death of individuality. Others can, others do. They dance to the music of the marketplace. They march to the rhythm of society's drum. They drown themselves in noise to avoid hearing the silence of truth. But the truthful man cannot. His ears are tuned to a deeper sound. And once you hear that sound, you cannot unhear it. Now, you may think, surely this man is free, for he sees what others cannot. And yes, there is freedom in truth. But freedom is not always light. Sometimes freedom is heavier than chains. Think of a prisoner released after many years. He steps into the open air, and for a moment he rejoices, but soon he trembles. For freedom requires choices, responsibility, risk. He cannot hide behind the walls any longer. He must stand on his own. So it is with truth. The liar hides behind illusion. The truthful man stands naked before reality. And reality is vast, uncertain, often merciless. This is why truth is not celebrated by the many. They prefer the comfortable shelter of lies. It is why prophets are stoned, why philosophers are ridiculed, why the honest man is mocked as naive or dangerous. His refusal to join the masquerade unsettles the dancers. And so, his freedom becomes his weight. The truthful man carries another burden too, the burden of clarity. To see things as they are means to also see the suffering that others ignore. When a man numbs himself with distractions, he can walk past the beggar in the street without a second thought. When he tells himself, "It's not my problem," he feels no sting of conscience. But the truthful man cannot turn away so easily. He sees the hunger in the beggar's eyes as if it were his own. He feels the trembling of the earth under the weight of human greed. He senses the loneliness hidden behind laughter, the despair tucked behind smiles, and all of it presses upon him. This is not to say he wallows in misery, no, but he is awake to pain. And awakening to pain means carrying it, even when it is not yours. It is like standing on a mountain where you see the whole valley. Beautiful, yes, but also terrible. You see not only the flowers, but also the graves, not only the rivers, but also the blood that stains them. To see clearly is both a gift and a wound. And so the truthful man appears heavier than others. He is not entertained by empty distractions, for he sees through them. He is not intoxicated by shallow praise, for he knows how quickly it fades. He is not comforted by hollow promises, for he knows they cannot be kept. Instead, he carries the silence of honesty, the loneliness of authenticity, the sorrow of seeing through illusions. Others dance lightly because they believe the dance is real. The truthful man walks heavily because he knows it is only a play. And when the play no longer convinces you, even laughter becomes heavy in your mouth. But here lies the paradox. The burden of truth, though heavy, is the only burden worth carrying. For what do the others carry? They carry the burden of lies, though they do not admit it. They must remember their falsehoods, repair their broken disguises, run from their own reflections. Their burden is confusion. The truthful man's burden is clarity. And though clarity weighs him down, it also steadies him. He may stumble under its heaviness, but he does not fall into the abyss of delusion. He may feel alone, but he is not lost. He may feel heavy, but he is real. And reality, though harsh, is the only ground upon which a man can truly stand. So the truthful man carries the heaviest burden, not because life is cruel, not because he is cursed, but because he refuses the cheap comfort of illusion. He would rather suffer under the weight of truth than rest lightly upon the pillow of lies. And perhaps this is the greatest paradox of all. Though he seems burdened, though he seems lonely, though he seems weary, the truthful man, in his heaviness, is more free than the light-footed dancers of illusion. For when the dance ends, when the music fades, when the masks fall away, it is only the truthful man who will still be standing, burdened but unbroken, heavy but whole. To live truthfully is to walk without armor, and that is why the truthful man appears fragile, even weak. While others surround themselves with shields of pretense, I am strong, I am in control, I am important, he steps forward bare, unwilling to clothe himself in what he knows to be false. At first glance, this seems foolish. How can a man without armor survive in a world that worships appearances? How can the unprotected endure in a society that mistakes masks for strength? Yet here is the paradox. His lack of armor is precisely his strength. For what happens when the storm comes? What happens when the illusions crack? The man who wears false armor is shattered along with it. The truthful man, having never depended on illusions, stands firm. The burden of truth is heavy because it does not allow shortcuts. The liar can flatter to be liked, boast to be admired, pretend to be wise. He can win friends with deceit, gain power with manipulation, and soothe his conscience with distraction. The truthful man has none of these luxuries. He must take the long road, the slow road, the honest road. He must earn respect, not demand it. He must accept solitude when his honesty unsettles others. He must face consequences when his refusal to lie exposes what others would prefer to hide. This is why his steps are heavy. Every footfall is weighed with reality. And yet, this heaviness is not defeat, it is integrity. The truthful man walks with burden, yes, but each burden carried honestly strengthens his soul. To carry truth is also to carry solitude. You see, lies create crowds. They give us slogans to chant together, masks to wear together, illusions to share. Whole societies are built upon mutually agreed pretenses. And within them, people feel united, not because they are truly connected, but because they are collectively deceived. But the truthful man cannot join this unity. He cannot nod along when his heart says no. He cannot pretend to belong when he knows the price of belonging is the death of his authenticity. And so, he walks apart, He becomes the man at the edge of the room, the one whose silence disturbs the noise, the one who no longer laughs at empty jokes. He feels the sting of being misunderstood, the ache of being excluded, the chill of being alone. This is his burden. But it is also his refinement. For solitude, when embraced truthfully, is not emptiness but fullness. The man who is left alone with his honesty begins to hear what the crowd cannot. He hears the song of the wind, the wisdom of silence, the quiet companionship of the stars. In losing the applause of the many, he gains the intimacy of the real. The truthful man carries the heaviest burden because he is called to suffer without escape. The liar suffers too, of course, but he hides his suffering beneath distractions. He runs into the arms of entertainment, drowns himself in noise, loses himself in ambition. He refuses to look at his pain directly, and so he carries it in secret, disguised even from himself. But the truthful man has no such escape. He feels pain and admits it. He faces fear and names it. He confronts despair without the drug of denial. And so his suffering is heavier but also cleaner. Like a fire that burns hot and pure, his suffering refines him. It teaches him what matters. It strips away what is unnecessary. It forges in him a strength that cannot be faked, for it is carved directly from the stone of reality. This is why the truthful man, though heavy, is free. The liar may laugh loudly, but inside he trembles. The crowd may cheer together, but each member fears solitude. The pretender may shine for a season, but he is always running from the shadow he casts. The truthful man, however, has nothing to fear. His life may be heavy, but it is steady. His road may be lonely, but it is real. His heart may ache, but it is whole. And this wholeness, this integrity, gives him a strength that no applause, no praise, no illusion can provide. The burden of truth also transforms the way he sees others. At first, honesty isolates him, but in time, he discovers that his burden is not only his own. Everyone, in their quiet moments, senses the weight of reality. Everyone knows, somewhere deep inside, that their masks are fragile, that their illusions will one day fail. The truthful man becomes a kind of silent witness to this hidden awareness in others. He no longer despises them for their lies. He understands. He sees that their dishonesty is not cruelty, but fear. They fear what he has already accepted, the raw, unpolished face of reality. And so his burden, though heavy, ripens into compassion. He does not join their illusions, but neither does he condemn them. He carries his truth with dignity, and in doing so, he becomes a light for those who are ready to step into honesty themselves. The heaviest burden becomes the deepest gift. For in the end, what the truthful man carries is not merely his own honesty, but the possibility of honesty for everyone. By refusing to bow to illusion, he shows that it can be done. By bearing the cost of authenticity, he proves that the cost is survivable. By walking alone, he clears a path that others may one day follow, and though he may never be thanked, though his road may never be crowded, he leaves behind a trail of footprints that point toward reality. So yes, the truthful man carries the heaviest burden, but it is a burden worth carrying, for while it bends his back, it straightens his spirit. While it isolates him from the crowd, it connects him to the cosmos. While it removes his illusions, it reveals the eternal presence behind them. And when all the masks fall away, when all the pretenses collapse, when all the illusions dissolve, it will not be the liar who stands free. It will be the man who carried the burden of truth all along. There comes a time, you see, when the noise of emotion fades, not because you've found peace, but because you've stopped knowing what to feel. You wake up and realize that nothing exactly hurts, yet nothing exactly moves you either. The music still plays, the sun still rises, but somehow you feel like a spectator in your own life. And that, perhaps, is the most difficult feeling of all, the feeling of nothing. You tell yourself you should be grateful. Things could be worse. You've known pain before, and this isn't pain. But the absence of sadness doesn't feel like joy. It feels like suspension. You are neither drowning nor swimming, simply floating, watching everything drift past without the strength or desire to reach for it. And so you wonder, what is this emptiness? Is it depression? Is it rest? Or is it something else entirely, the mind's quiet rebellion against constant motion? Most people imagine that life should always be vivid, that we should feel deeply, that every moment should sparkle with meaning. But perhaps that expectation itself is what exhausts us. You can't keep the ocean at high tide forever. Every wave must eventually draw back. Maybe this emptiness isn't a failure of feeling, but the space that feeling needs to return home. You see, emotion, like breath, requires rhythm. You inhale joy, you exhale sorrow, and in between, there's a pause, a still point where nothing moves. That pause is where you are now. It isn't punishment. It's simply part of the natural breathing of the soul. The difficulty is that we don't recognize it as such. We've been conditioned to believe that stillness means something's gone wrong. So when you find yourself empty, you panic. You look for reasons, you analyze, you reach for distractions, anything to avoid the quiet. But life, with infinite patience, sits beside you and whispers, "It's all right. You're not broken. You're just resting." What if the emptiness isn't absence, but cleansing? What if it's life clearing space inside you, space that used to be filled with noise, with striving, with everyone else's expectations of who you should be? You begin to see that what you call emptiness might actually be truth revealing itself, unfiltered by drama or desire. For the first time, you are not rushing toward the next emotion to prove you're alive. You are simply being. And that's an uncomfortable realization, because being, without embellishment, feels raw. You can't hide behind excitement or sadness. You can't even hide behind hope. There's only awareness, open, bare, and silent. But there is a strange beauty to that silence. You start to notice things again, the way a breeze moves through curtains, the sound of distant laughter, the faint hum of your own heartbeat. Nothing dramatic, yet somehow it feels intimate. You're beginning to sense life not as a performance, but as presence. And maybe that's what the emptiness is for, to bring you back to presence, to pull you away from the endless striving to feel something extraordinary, so you can rediscover the ordinary as sacred. Because what you call emptiness might simply be life's way of teaching you how to see without expectation, how to love without condition, how to exist without the constant need for intensity. There's a story I once told about a man who went into the forest looking for enlightenment. For days, he meditated, chanted, and searched, but nothing happened. On the fifth day, exhausted, he gave up. He sat beneath a tree and simply breathed. In that moment of giving up, he noticed the sound of birds for the first time. He noticed the rhythm of his own breath, the feeling of the earth beneath him, and he began to weep, not from sadness, but from seeing how simple life had always been. That's what happens when the emptiness is allowed to be empty. It fills itself with awareness. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to fill the silence with meaning. Just listen. The same life that once made you feel everything is still here. It hasn't abandoned you. It's simply teaching you to hear in a quieter key. Think of a field after harvest. The soil looks bare, but that barrenness is not death. It's rest. It's preparation. Beneath the surface, life is reorganizing itself. What looks like nothing is the beginning of everything. The same is true for your heart. It's not broken. It's simply reorganizing. It's letting go of what it no longer needs to carry. And when you stop demanding that life feel a certain way, you begin to understand something astonishing, that meaning was never something you created. It was something that revealed itself in moments when you weren't trying. The smile of a stranger, the flicker of candlelight, the quiet comfort of existing at all these things become enough again. So when you feel empty, don't rush to fill it. Let the emptiness be what it is. Let it echo. Let it stretch. Because it is in that space that the next chapter of your aliveness is already forming. And if you can bear to sit there, even for a little while, you might realize that what you thought was numbness was actually clarity the moment before feeling returns, the calm before understanding. You don't need to label it. You don't need to cure it. You just need to stay awake long enough to see what it becomes. Because one day soon, without warning, you'll notice something small, a sound, a scent, a fleeting thought, and it will move you again. And when it does, you'll understand that the emptiness wasn't an ending, but a cleansing. You'll laugh, perhaps softly, and say to yourself, "Ah, it was never gone, it was just quiet." And that quiet, my friend, is the foundation of all joy. And so, after all the searching, after all the noise and striving and breakdowns and beginnings, you come to this quiet space. The world still spins, people still move, things still happen, but for you, something has changed. You are no longer measuring life by its emotional intensity. You are no longer chasing after a feeling to prove that you exist. You are, quite simply, here. And that, though it sounds small, is the greatest arrival of all. When you stop needing to feel something extraordinary, you begin to notice the miracle of the ordinary. The way water glimmers in a glass, the way your breath cools as you exhale, the way stillness itself hums with a presence that can't be described. And it dawns on you that what you called emptiness was never empty at all. It was spacious, vast, quiet, and alive. But we are afraid of quiet things. We're afraid of the in-between, of pauses, of the unspectacular. Because in silence, there's nothing to distract us from ourselves. The mind, used to being occupied, begins to panic. Why am I not feeling? What's wrong? But when you allow the mind to panic and still stay still, you begin to see that the panic itself is only another ripple on the surface. Beneath it, there's something unmoving, something you can't name, but that has been here all along. That something is what you are, the awareness behind the waves, the witness of both joy and sorrow, presence and absence, fullness and emptiness. You begin to understand what the sages meant when they said that the true self is untouched by the changes of the world. It's not that life stops affecting you. It's that you stop mistaking its movements for your identity. When you say, "I feel empty," who is it that notices the emptiness? When you say, "I'm not sad," who is it that sees the absence of sadness? That one, the quiet observer, is what you've been searching for all your life. You were never meant to fill the emptiness. You were meant to recognize yourself within it. Emptiness, in this way, becomes a mirror. It reflects back not what's missing, but what has always been. It shows you that the peace you thought you had to earn through struggle was already present in the very stillness you were avoiding. There's a certain humility that comes with this realization. You begin to laugh at how hard you tried to fix what was never broken. You see how every emotional storm you once feared eventually passed, and how each one left you a little softer, a little more open. You see how even the emptiness, this quiet space you once called void, is not against you, but for you. It's life's way of giving you back to yourself. And now, when feelings do return, when joy or sorrow comes again, they don't own you. They move through you like weather. You let them come, and you let them go. You no longer demand that life be constant sunlight. You're content to stand in the rain, because you see now that even rain has its own kind of music, its own way of washing things clean. And this is perhaps the strangest truth, that the deepest fullness often hides in what the world calls emptiness. You might notice, too, how different your relationships feel from this place. When you are no longer desperate to feel, you no longer demand that others give you something to complete you. You stop turning love into a transaction. You love people for their being, not for their usefulness to your emotional narrative. You see that they, too, are walking through their own quiet spaces, their own seasons of emptiness. And suddenly, compassion blooms. You no longer need to rescue anyone, nor do you need anyone to rescue you. You simply share presence, and that is love in its purest form. We've been taught that love must burn bright, that it must overwhelm and intoxicate. But the truest love is more like moonlight, steady, cool, and quietly illuminating everything it touches. When you sit beside someone in silence and still feel connected, that is love. When you can walk through emptiness without demanding it to end, that is love. And so, your emptiness becomes your teacher. It teaches you patience, humility, gentleness. It teaches you that nothing needs to be forced, because everything is already unfolding exactly as it must. The great paradox of being human is that we run from what we most need to meet. We try to escape silence, not realizing that silence is where we hear life most clearly. We try to escape boredom, not realizing that boredom is simply the mind's restlessness before it dissolves into peace. You begin to understand that life's invitations rarely come in fireworks. They come in whispers. They come in the pauses between thoughts, in the spaces between heartbeats, in the gentle moments when you stop insisting that things must be different. There's an immense freedom in no longer needing every day to feel significant. You start to see that ordinary moments, washing dishes, walking, breathing, contain the same essence as enlightenment. The same awareness that watches galaxies spin is the awareness that watches your hands move under warm water. And that realization, my friend, changes everything. Because once you truly see it, you can never again believe that your life is meaningless. Meaning is not found in what you achieve or what you feel. It is found in the simple act of being aware. Now, perhaps you wonder, if life is so simple, why does it take so long for us to see it? Why do we have to go through heartbreak, exhaustion, emptiness, before we understand? Because simplicity cannot be taught, it must be rediscovered. The mind is addicted to complexity. It builds elaborate theories about who you are and what you must do. It fills the silence with commentary, with worry, with endless striving. But life, in its quiet wisdom, eventually shows you that none of that noise was ever necessary. So it lets you burn out. It lets you reach the end of your strength, the end of your ambitions, the end of your emotions, until, exhausted, you fall back into stillness. And in that fall, you finally see what was there all along: peace without reason, love without condition, being without need. That's the gentle trick of the universe. It hides itself in the very places you're most afraid to look, in silence, in loss, in emptiness, knowing that when you finally stop running, you will see that it was never gone. And when that realization sinks in, you don't just understand it intellectually, you feel it. You feel that everything is made of the same essence. The sound of the wind, the beating of your heart, the passing of time, all of it woven from the same thread. You realize that emptiness isn't the absence of life, it's the canvas upon which life paints. And from that moment on, you no longer need the highs and lows to feel alive. You can sit in the quiet and smile, because you know that even in stillness, you are surrounded by the miracle of being. There's a kind of maturity that comes with this seeing. Not the seriousness of age, but the softness of understanding. You become less interested in proving anything, less in a hurry to arrive anywhere. You begin to treat your own emotions like weather, beautiful when they come, but never personal. You find yourself saying, "Ah, here is sorrow. or, ah, here is joy, and watching both with equal tenderness. And this, I think, is the essence of freedom, to be so deeply at peace with change that nothing can truly disturb you anymore. It's not indifference. It's intimacy. You are no longer resisting life. You are touching it directly. Even your emptiness, when it comes again as it will, becomes a kind of friend. You recognize it, welcome it, let it sit beside you. You no longer ask it to leave. Because you know it is only life rearranging itself once more. And slowly, the great mystery of all this begins to reveal itself. That what you are looking for has never been elsewhere. The wholeness you seek was never lost. You were simply looking through the eyes of longing rather than the eyes of being. In the end, the journey from sadness to emptiness and from emptiness to peace is not about changing your life. It's about waking up to what has always been true. That even in the moments when you feel nothing, life is still holding you. That even when you feel detached, you are still deeply connected. That even in your quietest hour, you are still the sound of the universe breathing. And maybe, when all is said and done, that is what Alan Watts was trying to tell us all along. That awakening is not about feeling more, it's about needing less. It's the realization that being empty is not the opposite of being full. It's the same thing, seen from the other side. The fullness you've been searching for was never out there. It was always in the quiet, waiting for you to stop searching long enough to hear it. So if you're not sad, just empty, take heart. You are not broken. You are being made spacious enough to hold everything. Because when emptiness and awareness meet, that's what we call awakening. When life feels too heavy, it is not because the world has changed. It is because we have been carrying things that were never meant to be carried in the first place. There is a quiet burden that sits on the shoulders of so many of us, and it is not always obvious at first. We think it is the work we must do, the deadlines we must meet, the expectations we cannot escape. We think it is the people around us, the constant noise, the opinions that swirl through our lives. But the heaviest weight is often invisible. It is the weight we give to our own thoughts, to our own judgments, to the relentless pressure we place upon ourselves to be someone we think we ought to be. It is exhausting, and it can leave us feeling isolated, as though no one understands how heavy the air feels, how difficult it is to rise each day and face the responsibilities that pile upon us. It is important to notice these feelings, to allow yourself to recognize them. Many people try to push them aside or convince themselves that they are weak if they cannot bear the strain. They distract themselves with busy work, with noise, with small victories that never quite reach the heart of the problem. The burden remains because it is not about the tasks, it is about the way we relate to life itself. We try to control it, to shape it, to bend it to our will, and when life refuses to cooperate, we feel frustration, despair, and a sense of futility. You might think that if you could just be stronger or more disciplined or more capable, that the weight would lift, but it does not. Strength is not the answer in the way we have been taught to believe. Strength is not about holding on more tightly or pushing harder. Strength is about seeing clearly and learning when to release, when to let go, when to stop trying to carry what is not yours to carry. There is a curious paradox in life that so many of us miss. We think that life is a problem to solve when it is not. We think that the right way to live is to struggle against the current when the current is not our enemy. It is a river flowing, and we are swimming within it. When we resist, we exhaust ourselves. When we allow ourselves to move with it, even in small ways, we discover a rhythm, a subtle intelligence that exists beyond the effort of our minds. This does not mean giving up or abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing that there is a natural order to things, and that sometimes our attempts to force outcomes create more suffering than the circumstances themselves. Take a moment to remember a time when you were overwhelmed, and yet something shifted without your effort. Perhaps it was the sun breaking through a cloudy morning, the voice of a friend speaking a simple truth, or even a moment of silence that allowed your mind to rest. In those brief instants, there is a hint of what it feels like to release the weight. It is not about removing all challenges, but about changing the way we encounter them. Life can be demanding, but we do not have to meet it with endless resistance. There is a choice in how we respond, a space to breathe, a pause between what happens and how we react. In that space, the weight loses its oppressive quality, and we discover that we have always been capable of moving through difficulty more lightly than we imagined. Most of us fear that if we let go, we will fall. We are taught to think that holding on tightly is the measure of care, of dedication, of love. Yet the opposite is true in so many ways. There is freedom in releasing the compulsion to control. There is clarity in seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Our minds are often filled with stories of what should have been, who should have done what, how the world ought to operate, and in believing these stories, we carry unnecessary burdens. Step back and observe them. Notice the tension in your body, the contraction in your chest, the tightness in your jaw. These are signals that you are carrying weight that is not inherent in the moment. Awareness alone begins to lighten the load, because to be conscious of the burden is to no longer be trapped by it. Consider the way a tree stands through a storm. The branches bend with the wind. The trunk sways without breaking. The tree does not fight the storm, but moves with it. We humans often imagine that resilience requires rigidity, that we must remain unyielding. Yet, true resilience is the capacity to bend without fracturing, to adapt without losing one's essence. There is elegance in this approach to life, an ease that comes from understanding that we do not need to dominate every circumstance. We only need to meet it with awareness, with presence, with a gentle attention that honors both the challenge and our capacity to endure. It can be helpful to imagine setting down invisible bags that we carry, one by one, acknowledging the contents of each and asking yourself if it is yours to carry. Guilt that is inherited responsibility for outcomes that were never under your control, and expectations placed upon you by others often weigh heavily. Recognize them and allow them to exist without clinging. Let them settle around you like leaves in a stream. They are part of the landscape, but they do not need to become your weight. In this simple act, we begin to glimpse the possibility of living with a lighter heart and a more spacious mind. There is also a need to consider the flow of time. Many of us live as though the past is a burden we must bear indefinitely. We replay mistakes over and over in our minds. We imagine regrets as anchors that hold us down. Yet the past is unchangeable, and what matters is the present moment, the space in which we can act, choose, and move. To carry yesterday with us as if it defines who we are only increases the pressure. Let go of the stories you tell yourself about failure and loss. They are part of life, but they are not the sum of your being. Your life is happening now, and even amidst heaviness, there are moments of relief that are accessible if you allow yourself to notice them. Even the body carries weight in ways that mirror the mind. Shoulders tight, stomach knotted, chest contracted, jaw clenched. These tensions are signals not just of stress, but of the refusal to let life move naturally. Practices of gentle awareness, of noticing breath, of stretching without force, can serve as reminders that the body is capable of releasing as the mind is capable of surrendering. Each exhale becomes a small letting go. Each pause in thought a subtle relief. The process does not need to be dramatic. It does not need to be complete. Small movements, small recognitions accumulate into a profound transformation over time. There is a universality to this experience. Everyone at some point feels overwhelmed by existence, by the responsibilities of life, by the weight of expectations. The realization that life itself is not against us, but is instead a flow we inhabit, can bring a deep sense of comfort. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are not failing for struggling. The heaviness is a signal, an invitation to awaken to the possibility of a different relationship with life, a more spacious and forgiving one. Look at the people around you, and you will see the same subtle burdens reflected in posture, in speech, in quiet sighs. We are all learning how to navigate a world that often asks too much while offering so little clarity in return. To carry this understanding with compassion toward yourself and others is a powerful act. It reminds you that you are human and that the shared experience of life is both heavy and luminous, both difficult and extraordinary. Allow yourself to feel this truth fully. There is no shame in recognizing heaviness. There is no failure in admitting that you cannot carry everything. Awareness alone begins to dissolve the illusion that you must. When you pause to breathe, to observe, to release even slightly, you create space for life to move through you with less strain. It is in this movement that we find subtle joy even in hardship, relief even in challenge, and the possibility of connecting with life without the constant sense of struggle. The act of letting go does not mean abandoning life or responsibility. It means understanding the difference between what requires your presence and effort and what is simply the flow of existence around you. By discerning between these two, by gently releasing what is unnecessary, you cultivate freedom. Freedom is not the absence of difficulty, but the absence of needless resistance. It is the discovery that even amidst the weight, life can have moments of lightness that are tangible, real, and accessible. It is in these moments that we glimpse the deeper truth of living. We see that heaviness is not the end, that struggle is not a permanent state, that life is not something to be endured, but something to be experienced. And in this recognition, the heart softens, the mind relaxes, and the body unwinds. We become participants in life rather than captives of it. Every day offers small opportunities to practice this awareness. A walk in nature, listening deeply to a friend, noticing a sunset, or simply sitting with your breath. Each is a reminder that even if life feels heavy, we can meet it with presence. We can allow it to move through us rather than weigh upon us. Each small act of noticing, of breathing, of releasing, is a step toward living lightly, even in a world that often asks us to bear more than we can. Take a moment now to acknowledge the heaviness you feel. Observe it. Name it if you can. And then imagine it dissolving into the flow of life, not disappearing suddenly, but gently easing away. Notice how your posture shifts, how your chest opens slightly, how the mind feels a bit clearer. These small shifts are powerful. They remind you that heaviness is not a permanent identity. You are not the weight you carry. You are the awareness that notices it. This chapter has explored the subtle burdens we carry, the invisible pressures that weigh on us, and the ways awareness and surrender can begin to lighten the load. There is more to discover in this journey. In the next chapter, we will explore the deeper philosophical and spiritual dimensions of releasing heaviness and finding a profound sense of freedom and ease in life. Consider for a moment how much of your life is spent trying to control things that are inherently uncontrollable. We try to dictate the behavior of others, to predict outcomes, to prevent mistakes, to manage what is beyond our grasp. This is exhausting. The mind becomes a battlefield of endless strategizing, and the heart becomes tense with worry. Yet there is a remarkable shift when we recognize that life flows in ways we cannot fully anticipate. There is freedom in releasing the compulsion to force every outcome, and in trusting that even within uncertainty there is a pattern, a rhythm, a subtle order that can guide us if we are attentive. The pressure of life often comes from comparing our journey to others. We measure our success, our worth, our progress against people who walk different paths with different circumstances. Comparison is a weight that is entirely optional. When we stop measuring ourselves against others and begin to observe our own path, we discover a deeper alignment with who we are. Our goals, our joys, our struggles become unique expressions of life, unfolding in its own way. We are not failing if we do not meet arbitrary standards. We are participating in the natural flow of our own existence. It is important to remember that heaviness is not a punishment. It is a signal. It is life inviting us to pause, to look more closely, to reconsider how we are moving through it. The pressure, the fatigue, the sense of being overwhelmed can all become teachers. If we meet them with curiosity rather than resistance, we begin to understand their purpose. They reveal what we value, what we fear, what we are clinging to, and what we can gently release. One way to practice this is through noticing the small sensations in the body. Life's heaviness often manifests physically as tension in the shoulders, a tightness in the chest, a constriction in the jaw. By turning attention toward these sensations and simply observing them without judgment, we create a pause. In that pause, the weight begins to shift. The mind begins to follow the body, and a small sense of ease emerges. It does not require heroic effort. It requires attention, presence, and a willingness to allow life to move through us rather than be blocked by us. Another dimension of releasing heaviness is understanding the nature of thought itself. Thoughts are not commands, they are phenomena. They arise and fade like clouds passing through the sky. We often mistake them for reality and cling to them as if they are the truth. This clinging creates tension. By noticing thoughts as transient and letting them pass without resistance, we free ourselves from the unnecessary weight they impose. Awareness of the mind's movement is the beginning of liberation. There is a simple metaphor that may help. Imagine a bird carrying a small stone in its claw. The bird flies, but the stone weighs it down. Now imagine the bird letting go of the stone. The bird does not stop flying. It does not fall. It soars with ease and grace. Life is much the same. The stones we clutch are often optional. Recognizing them and releasing them allows us to move more lightly, more freely, more joyfully through the currents of existence. It is also essential to consider our relationship with time. Many people carry the past as if it were a heavy load they cannot leave behind. Regret, guilt, and sorrow become anchors that impede movement. Similarly, fear of the future creates tension and anxiety. True ease emerges when we inhabit the present moment fully. The present is where life unfolds. It is where choice and action are possible. By dwelling in now, even briefly, we release the weight of what was and the worry of what might be. This does not mean forgetting lessons from the past or ignoring the future. It means engaging with them without attachment. We can learn from experience without being defined by it. We can plan for the future without being consumed by it. The heaviness of life is diminished when we distinguish between what is immediate and what is imagined. Presence is the key that unlocks relief. There is also a relational dimension to consider. Many of the weights we carry involve others, expectations, judgments, and attachments can burden us. By observing our relationships with compassion and honesty, we can release unnecessary strain. We do not need to fix others or conform to their desires. We can engage authentically without absorbing their weight as our own. Boundaries, when practiced with care, are not limitations but liberations. They allow us to move through life without accumulating needless pressure. Even in the midst of challenge, there is room for joy. The moments that surprise us, the laughter that bubbles unexpectedly, the beauty that reveals itself in ordinary life, all remind us that life is not entirely heavy. By learning to notice these moments, we cultivate a counterbalance to pressure. Joy does not cancel difficulty, but it softens it. It creates space between the weight and ourselves and reminds us that existence has many dimensions, many rhythms, many textures. Spiritual insight deepens this understanding. In most philosophical traditions, the idea is the same life is not something to dominate, but something to participate in. There is a flow, an intelligence, a current that we are part of, whether we acknowledge it or not. Resistance creates struggle. Engagement without clinging creates freedom. When we recognize that we are not separate from life, that life is not an enemy to be conquered, the heaviness begins to dissolve. Presence, awareness, and acceptance become tools of liberation. Practice can take many forms. Meditation, mindful walking, listening deeply to another person, observing nature, or even simply breathing consciously, all remind us of this truth. The practices are not magic. They do not erase difficulty. They reveal our capacity to meet it differently. Each moment of noticing, each act of letting go, accumulates into profound change. Over time, the constant background weight of life diminishes, and we discover a quieter, lighter, more spacious way of being. It is helpful to remember that heaviness is not a personal failing. Everyone experiences it. Everyone at times feels overwhelmed. By observing this universality, we connect with others and with ourselves. Compassion for ourselves and for the shared human experience softens tension. It is a gentle reminder that difficulty is part of life, that it is not a reflection of inadequacy, and that release is always possible. The process of lightening life's weight is continuous. It requires patience, kindness, and persistence. Small moments matter. Pauses in thought, moments of attention to breath, brief acknowledgements of sensation and feeling, noticing joy and beauty, practicing presence in everyday tasks, observing the impermanence of thoughts and emotions, and engaging with life without rigid attachment, all of these contribute. The river flows, and we learn to move with it rather than against it. As we conclude this reflection, know that life's heaviness is not permanent. It is a condition that invites awareness, presence, and release. The pressures, the fears, the burdens, all serve as teachers if we meet them consciously. Step into the flow, observe the weight without clinging, breathe deeply, allow life to move through you. And in doing so, discover the subtle freedom, the gentle ease, and the profound lightness that is always available when we stop resisting and start participating. Even as you face responsibilities and challenges, even as you feel the pull of expectations and pressures, remember this: you are not the weight you carry. You are the awareness that notices it. And awareness has the capacity to release, to soften, to lighten, and to move through life with grace. This is not a promise of a perfect life. Life will remain complex and sometimes difficult, but it is a promise of freedom from unnecessary struggle and a reminder that even when life feels too heavy, it is possible to experience relief, clarity, and presence. Take a moment now to breathe, to notice, and to feel the difference that small awareness brings. You are not alone in this. Everyone navigates the currents of life, and in noticing the weight, releasing what is optional, and engaging fully with the present, we participate in life rather than being crushed by it. There is no final destination. There is only the journey and the manner in which we move through it. Let it be lighter, let it be conscious, let it be present, and let it be deeply, profoundly your own. There comes a point in nearly every life when faith in any form begins to crumble. It doesn't matter whether you call it faith in God, faith in people, faith in progress, or even faith in yourself. There comes a moment when all of it feels absurd, when the world appears to spin without reason, and you stand at the center wondering what on earth any of this is for. And you see, that is a very revealing place to arrive at, because the loss of faith is not the end of the spiritual journey. It is the beginning of it. We grow up believing that faith is something we must cling to, something we must protect from doubt like a fragile flame in a storm. But real faith does not need protection. Real faith is what remains when all beliefs have collapsed. For what you call belief is often only certainty dressed in spiritual clothing, and certainty is brittle, like glass. The moment life becomes unpredictable, it shatters. So what happens when your life stops making sense? When the things you trusted, religion, success, relationships, your very sense of purpose, seem hollow or even cruel? Most people panic. They rush to replace one belief with another. They switch religions, chase new philosophies, or drown themselves in distractions. But the wise do something very strange. They stop running. They stand still in the darkness and let the questions echo, because they know that doubt is not the enemy of faith. It is its purifier. You see, to lose faith is to lose the false ground on which you once stood. And that can feel like dying, because in a sense, it is. The self that you believed was secure, the one that thought it understood what life was, begins to dissolve. But what dies is not you. It is only the illusion that you ever knew what you were doing here. Faith, when it is real, is not a belief that things will be fine. It is the recognition that things already are fine, even when they appear chaotic. The universe is not obliged to make sense to the human mind. And the moment you stop demanding that it should, you begin to see that it is not senseless at all, it is simply vast. When we lose faith, what we are really losing is the idea that life should serve our understanding. We forget that the mind is not the master of life, but its expression. The mind is like a mirror, reflecting what appears before it. But we try to make it a sculptor, carving out meaning, demanding control, demanding permanence. And when reality refuses to conform, we call it meaningless. Yet the absurdity we feel is not in life itself, it is in our insistence that it must fit our definitions. Look carefully and you will see that every crisis of faith is an invitation to look without a map. And that is terrifying, because the map gives us the illusion of direction. We like to think we are on our way somewhere toward enlightenment, success, redemption. But what if the road itself is the destination? What if there is nowhere to arrive, nothing to prove, no cosmic verdict waiting at the end of time? The loss of faith strips away your idols one by one. It shows you that the gods you worshipped, your ideals, your philosophies, your achievements, were always carved from the same stone of thought. And when the stone cracks, you begin to see the emptiness beneath. That emptiness is not a void to fear. It is the space from which life itself emerges. When you lose faith, the ground beneath you disappears because it was never there to begin with. You realize that you have been walking on air the entire time. You begin to laugh, not because the situation is funny, but because you see how absurdly serious you've been about something that was never under your control. Life has never depended on your faith in it. It moves, breathes, and unfolds entirely on its own. The stars are not burning because you believe in them. The waves do not crash upon the shore because you understand the ocean. Life simply is, and your faith or lack of it has nothing to do with its being. This realization is both humbling and liberating. It humbles you because it shows that you were never the center of the story. But it liberates you because it means the story does not depend on you to continue. Losing faith is not a curse. It is a sacred disillusionment. The illusion that dies is the one that whispered, "You must know what this means." And when that illusion dies, what remains is raw experience, the taste of existence without interpretation, the rain falling without reason, the silence that follows your last question, the simple awareness that you are here, breathing, feeling, being. And then something extraordinary happens. In the very moment you stop trying to believe, you begin to see, not with the eyes of the intellect, but with the eyes of presence. You see that faith was never meant to be a belief. It was meant to be a way of seeing. So when you find yourself saying, "I've lost faith in life," pause for a moment. Notice that life has not lost faith in you. The sun still rises, the earth still turns, your heart still beats. Something larger than your understanding is carrying you even through this despair. And that, my friends, is the quiet beginning of real faith. Because faith, when it is pure, is not a conclusion, it is participation. It is the willingness to live without answers and to still marvel at the mystery. It is the courage to trust that what is unfolding is not happening to you, but through you. And when you reach that understanding, When you finally see that losing faith is the invitation to experience life without filters, you begin to see that what you called loss was only the breaking of a shell. Inside that shell, life itself has always been waiting, free, eternal, and complete. When you have truly lost faith, you are standing in a kind of spiritual silence. It is not comfortable at first. The mind screams for meaning. It wants the old symbols back, the gods, the promises, the goals. It wants the ground it used to walk upon. But silence, if you allow it, begins to reveal something extraordinary. You begin to sense that the meaning you were chasing was never out there waiting to be found. It was always in the act of looking itself. The very energy that drove you to seek purpose was the same pulse that creates suns and galaxies. You were never separated from meaning. You were meaning happening in human form. This is why despair can be such a sacred teacher. It is the gate through which the false self cannot pass. Every philosophy, every religion, every grand certainty eventually collapses under the weight of reality. Because life is too vast to fit inside a system of thought. And when your system collapses, you are not left with nothing, you are left with everything. You may have noticed that the people who seem most at peace are not those who have all the answers, but those who have stopped needing them. They laugh easily, they move freely, they are not anxious about being right. It's not that they've discovered some grand secret, it's that they have made peace with not knowing. They have learned to rest in the mystery instead of trying to solve it. You see, losing faith is not about losing your connection to life. It's about losing your illusion of separation. It's about realizing that life was never something happening to you, it was always happening as you. And when that realization dawns, it doesn't come as a thought. It comes as a feeling, a subtle warmth, a quiet recognition that you have always been home. Imagine a wave in the ocean, convinced that it is lost because it no longer feels the security of being near the shore. It forgets that it was never separate from the ocean in the first place. The wave cannot be lost because it is the ocean moving in form. You are that wave. The loss you feel is the ocean reminding you of what you are made of. When we lose faith, what actually happens is that the ego loses its foothold. The part of you that wanted life to serve its plans finally surrenders. You begin to see that life doesn't need your permission to unfold. And in that surrender, a space opens, a stillness that allows reality to be just as it is. That stillness is not apathy, it is awareness. Faith returns then, not as belief, but as trust. Not the trust that everything will go your way, but the trust that even when it doesn't, you are still a part of something immeasurably whole. It is like falling backward into the arms of the universe and discovering they were never not there. What you begin to realize is that life is not a riddle to be solved, but a song to be heard. You don't stand outside it, trying to decode the melody. You are one of the notes. The loss of faith becomes a deep listening, a return to the rhythm you had forgotten while trying so hard to understand the music. Look at a child playing in the sand. There is no agenda there, no doctrine, no search for purpose, and yet the play itself is full of purpose. Life in its purest form is self-fulfilling. The ocean waves not to reach the shore, but because waving is its nature. The stars do not shine to illuminate something else. They shine because shining is what they are. And when you understand this, you realize that you, too, are an expression of life being what it is. You begin to see that even your doubts, your losses, your long nights of the soul are part of that same dance. The darkness is not against the light, it defines it. Without doubt, faith would have no depth. Without loss, love would have no tenderness. Without death, life would have no urgency. Everything that frightened you was secretly working in your favor, shaping you into someone who could finally see without filters. And so the true purpose of faith is not to escape suffering, but to see through it, to look pain in the eyes and realize that even it belongs. When the rain falls, it doesn't ask whether it is doing the right thing. It simply falls. When the wind blows, it doesn't question its direction. It moves, because that is what wind does. And when you lose faith, you too are simply passing through a natural season of the soul. Every human being will face this moment in some form. The mystics called it the dark night. The philosophers called it existential despair. But in truth, it is the same event the moment life strips you bare of all false meanings so that you may encounter the real one. And what is the real one? It cannot be said. Because the moment you say it, you turn it into a concept. But you can feel it like a quiet hum beneath everything that happens. It is the stillness between your thoughts, the pause before laughter, the silence that holds every sound. That silence, that hum, that awareness, that is faith itself. When you realize this, you stop searching for faith as something to hold on to. You begin to see that it was never lost. It only hid behind your attempts to define it. The divine, if you wish to call it that, is not something you find at the end of a road. It is what has been looking through your eyes all along. So when you say, "I've lost faith in life," look again. You haven't lost faith. You've simply lost your ideas about what life should be. And in that loss lies the opportunity to discover what life is. It is not a story with a happy ending. It is not a test to be passed. It is not a puzzle to be solved. It is an ever-unfolding mystery that invites you to participate. You are not meant to believe in it. You are meant to be it. The loss of faith is the final invitation to stop pretending, to stop performing, and to start living. It is the beginning of intimacy with reality. And that intimacy, once it awakens, is the quietest, most unshakable form of faith there is. For the one who has truly lost faith in life does not need to find it again. He realizes that life never asked for his faith in the first place. Life only asked him to see. Everyone, at some point, has felt the sting of being hurt. Someone you trusted betrayed you. Someone you loved abandoned you. Someone you depended on dismissed you as if you were nothing. And in those moments, the pain feels unbearable. It feels like your very being has been wounded, as though something precious inside you has been torn apart. We walk through life carrying these wounds like badges, telling ourselves, "I will never let this happen again." And so we build walls. We armor ourselves with indifference. We wear masks of confidence, pretending we cannot be touched. But have you noticed? The more armor you put on, the heavier it becomes. The more you try to protect yourself, the more fragile you actually feel. Because deep down you know the wall is not real protection. It is only a prison. Think about a piece of glass. If you want to keep it safe, you might wrap it in cloth, hide it away in a box, and lock the box in a room. But then what happens? The glass never sees the light. It never fulfills its purpose. And the moment it touches the world again, the smallest blow will shatter it. This is what happens to us when we live in armor. We cut ourselves off from life, thinking it will spare us from pain. But instead, it makes us brittle. Have you noticed that the strongest things in nature are not hard, but soft? A tree that does not bend with the wind is uprooted. A rock crumbles, but water flows on. The soft, the yielding, the flexible, these endure. So ask yourself, why do you want to be hard? Why do you want to be untouchable? Hardness looks like strength, but it is actually weakness in disguise. Here is the paradox. You are hurt not because of what happens to you, but because of the meaning you give it. If someone insults you, the words themselves are just sounds. But if you believe those words, If they strike against the image you carry of yourself, then you feel pain. If someone rejects you, what hurts is not their absence, but the story you tell yourself that you are unworthy, unlovable, less than whole. The event itself is neutral. It is the interpretation that cuts. This is difficult to see, because we are trained to live through images of ourselves. We think we are this fragile mask that must be defended at all costs, and when the mask is scratched, we cry out as though the face itself has been wounded. But who you really are cannot be scratched. When you look closely, you realize that the hurt is never in the insult, never in the betrayal, never in the rejection. The hurt is in the clutching, the holding on, the refusal to let the wave pass. Pain is a wave. It rises, it crashes, it disappears. But suffering is what happens when you hold the wave, when you try to stop it from dissolving. You say, this should not have happened. And in that clinging, the wound deepens. We imagine that if only life were different, if only people treated us better, if only the world were kinder, then we would never be hurt again. But that is not the way of things. The world is full of storms. People will betray you, people will reject you, people will misunderstand you. That is the nature of the play. The real question is not whether storms will come, but whether you will insist on being a house of glass in the middle of the hurricane, or whether you will discover that you are the air itself through which the storm moves, but which is never broken. This is why every attempt to make yourself untouchable through force, through hardness, through withdrawal, eventually fails, because the problem was never the storm. The problem was your identification with the house. You are not the fragile structure being battered by the wind. You are the space in which the wind blows. And if you see this, you realize something extraordinary. You cannot actually be hurt. Now, perhaps you think, that can't be true. I have felt pain, I have suffered, I have scars. Yes, of course, pain comes, like the rain, but rain cannot drown the sky. Storms cannot scar the space through which they pass. Your awareness, your true being, is untouched by events. Only the image of yourself, the little mask you cling to, feels wounded. Imagine a mirror. People can stand in front of it, they can smile, they can frown, they can curse at it, they can praise it, but the mirror itself is unaffected. It does not become more beautiful when someone smiles into it, nor does it become ugly when someone spits at it. The reflections come and go. The mirror remains. So it is with you. The insults, the betrayals, the losses, these are reflections, temporary, passing. But you, as awareness itself, are untouched. The tragedy is that we spend our lives trying to fix the reflections, not realizing we are the mirror. We polish the mask, defend it, hide it, parade it, and we suffer endlessly because masks can be damaged, images can be torn, but the awareness behind them cannot. You have never been wounded at your core. You have only believed in wounds. And when you begin to see this, something shifts. You realize that the hurt you carry is a story about what should or should not have happened, and stories can be released. This is why the old masters say, drop the burden, drop the mask, let go of the story. You think you are protecting yourself with armor, but the armor is what makes you heavy. You think you are preserving your dignity by holding on to the wound, but the wound is what keeps you from being free. Letting go does not mean pretending it didn't happen. It means seeing that it does not define you. It means realizing that what you are is deeper than any event, any insult, any betrayal. The ocean does not fear the storm. It allows it, embraces it, swallows it whole. And when the storm is gone, the ocean remains vast, deep, untouched. You are that ocean. So if you have been hurt, and surely you have, remember this: the pain is not a proof of your weakness, but an invitation to see where you are clinging. And if you dare to look deeper, you may find that beneath the wound, beneath the story, beneath the mask, there is something that has never been touched at all. That is who you are. And from that place, you will see that no one and nothing can truly hurt you. There comes a moment when you begin to see that what you thought was strength was actually fear. The armor you wore was not a sign of courage, but of trembling. The mask you carried was not self-expression, but self-protection. And when you glimpse this, you may feel naked, exposed, as though you have stripped away the only thing keeping you safe. But here is the secret. What you stripped away was not safety at all. It was the very weight that kept you drowning. We believe that by closing ourselves off, we will avoid hurt. But notice what happens when you close your heart. Yes, you may avoid rejection, but you also avoid intimacy. Yes, you may avoid betrayal, but you also avoid trust. Yes, you may avoid loss, but you also avoid love. And so, in trying to escape pain, you also escape joy. In avoiding hurt, you avoid life itself. Is this not a strange bargain? To trade the vastness of living for the narrow safety of a cage? But here is the paradox. When you open yourself fully, when you stop resisting the storms, you discover that nothing can truly touch you. Not because you have hardened, but because you have discovered the part of you that was never fragile to begin with. This is what the mystics call the ground of being, the Tao, the Atman, the self beyond the self. It is not something you achieve. It is not something you build. It is what you already are, and it is untouchable. Think of water. It can be struck, cut, divided, beaten, and yet it yields. It flows around obstacles. It takes the shape of any container, and when the container is gone, it returns to its own form. You cannot hurt water. You can only change its shape for a moment. Or think of the sky. Planes may cut through it. Clouds may thunder. Storms may rage, but the sky itself is never harmed. It does not carry scars. It does not remember insults. It is open, boundless, unmarked. This is what you are, not the passing events, not the insults, not the betrayals, not the fleeting stories. You are the awareness in which all of this arises, the open sky in which the storms of life play for a little while. But we forget this, and in forgetting, we suffer. We think, they hurt me, they betrayed me, they broke me. But who is this me that was broken? Is it not simply a story, an image? Your real being cannot be betrayed because it is not dependent on others. It cannot be broken because it has no parts. It cannot be abandoned because it is the very ground on which all relationships play. The one who is hurt is the mask, but the mask is not you. And here comes the great reversal. When you stop clinging to the mask, when you stop believing you are the fragile self-image, the very possibility of being hurt dissolves. This does not mean you become cold or indifferent. On the contrary, you become more alive, more open, more tender. Because now you are no longer afraid. You can love without fear of loss, because you see that loss cannot touch your essence. You can trust without fear of betrayal, because betrayal cannot wound your being. You can live without fear of death, because death cannot end what you truly are. Imagine this, a mirror. A child may stand in front of it, laughing, making silly faces. Later, an angry man may stand in front of it, shouting, spitting, cursing, but the mirror remains untouched. It reflects, it allows, but it is never stained. You are that mirror. The events of your life are reflections. They come, they go, they pass. But you, as awareness itself, remain unstained. To live from this realization is to become untouchable, not because nothing ever happens, but because nothing leaves a scar. The waves come, the waves go. The ocean remains. And this is the ultimate freedom. Because once you see that no one can truly hurt you, you stop living in fear. And when fear dissolves, love arises naturally. You no longer close yourself off. You no longer carry the heavy armor. You no longer resist the storms. Instead, you allow them, you dance with them, you even laugh at them. This is what it means to be free. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of resistance. Not the promise that storms will never come, but the discovery that storms cannot harm the sky. Now, let us return to where we began. You have been hurt. Of course you have. Every human being has. But what if those hurts were not what you thought they were? What if they were invitations? Invitations to see more deeply into yourself? The betrayal that shattered your heart, perhaps it was showing you that your heart cannot truly be shattered. The insult that burned in your mind, perhaps it was revealing that the one you thought you were is only a mask. The loss that left you in grief, perhaps it was pointing you to the part of you that cannot be lost. Seen this way, every hurt becomes a doorway. Every wound becomes a teacher. Every scar becomes a reminder, not of fragility, but of the indestructible being that you are. And so, the question is not, how do I protect myself from hurt? The question is, who is it that I think is being hurt? Look there. Look closely. You will find that the one you thought was so vulnerable, so fragile, so easily broken, is only a shadow, a story, a passing reflection. The real you, the awareness in which all of this arises, is untouchable. And if you truly see this, then the great burden lifts, the armor falls away, the mask dissolves, and you walk through life light, open, free. Yes, storms will come, people will betray, insult, misunderstand, reject. But these are only clouds passing through the vastness of your sky, and the sky remains. So the next time you feel hurt, remember, the hurt is a story, the pain is a wave. Let it come, let it go. And in the quiet after the storm, you will notice you were never truly touched. You were never truly broken. You were never truly harmed. You have always been the open sky, the vast ocean, the mirror that cannot be stained. And in this realization, you will find a freedom beyond anything you ever imagined, because no one and nothing can truly hurt you.